Sold into marriage to settle a debt, the alien girl's despair turns to joy when she meets her groom. The twin suns of Tvaris hung low in the sky, casting a golden glow over the sprawling marketplace of Lyrian's home city. The air buzzed with the hum of hovercraft and the chatter of merchants bartering goods, spices from distant moons, shimmering fabrics woven by insectoid drones, and rare crystals that pulsed with light. Lyrian stood at the edge of her family's stall, her delicate blue hands clutching a ledger. At 19 cycles old, she was young for a Tvar, her skin a soft cerulean that shimmered faintly in the heat. Her wide, amber eyes scanned the numbers again, hoping they'd change. They didn't. The family's trading guild, once a proud name across the galaxy, was drowning in debt. Her father, Torin, approached, his shoulders slumped under the weight of his ornate robe. The Tvar were a peaceful people, their long, slender bodies built for grace rather than strength, their minds sharp with empathy and trade. But Torin's face was etched with worry, his silver hair dull from sleepless nights. "Lyrian," he said, his voice low, "the council has spoken. The debt to Warlord Krax cannot be repaid with credits alone. He demands something more." Lyrian's heart sank. Krax was a name feared across the neutral systems, a hulking reptarian with scales like blackened steel, commanding a fleet of raiders that preyed on the weak. Her family's last expedition, a risky venture to mine a volatile asteroid field, had ended in disaster when Krax's ships ambushed them. Half the crew was lost, and the cargo, worth millions, was stolen. "What does he want, father?" she asked, though dread already coiled in her chest. Torin hesitated, then placed a hand on her shoulder. "He wants you, Lyrian. A marriage to bind our family to his alliance. It's the only way to save us." The words hit her like a physical blow. Marriage? To a monster like Krax? She stepped back, shaking her head. "No. I won't do it. There has to be another way." Her voice trembled, but her father's eyes were firm, pleading. "There isn't," he said. "If we refuse, he'll destroy everything, our guild, our home, our people. This is bigger than us." Lyrian fled to her room that night, the walls of their modest dwelling closing in around her. She stared at her reflection in a polished crystal mirror, her pointed ears, her flowing white hair, the faint glow of her skin. The Tvar valued harmony, not sacrifice. How could her father ask this of her? She imagined Krax's cold, reptilian eyes, his claws gripping her arm, and tears welled up, streaking her face with silver trails. She couldn't run, Krax's reach was too vast, but she couldn't accept this fate either. Days later, a twist came that Lyrian hadn't expected. Torin returned from a meeting with a faint spark of hope in his gaze. "There's another option," he said, sitting her down. "A human captain, Daniel Voss, has agreed to take Krax's place. He's offered to marry you instead, in exchange for our guild support in his fight against the warlord. It clears our debt and keeps you safe." Humans. Lyrian's voice rose with disbelief. She'd heard stories of them, brash, unpredictable creatures from a distant world called Earth, known for their stubbornness and strange inventions. "They're warriors, father. Violent. What's the difference between Krax and this Daniel Voss?" "He's different," Torin insisted. "He's fought Krax before and won. He's not like the warlord. The humans value freedom, not domination. Meet him, Lyrian. Please." The handover was set for the next day, at the edge of the city where the desert met the stars. Lyrian stood beside her father, dressed in a flowing Tvar gown of silver threads, her hands trembling. A human ship descended, its hull scarred from battles, engines roaring with a power that made the ground shake. The Stellar Dawn, they called it. The ramp lowered, and out stepped Captain Daniel Voss. He was taller than she'd imagined, broad-shouldered, with skin tanned by alien suns. His dark hair was cropped short, and his green eyes scanned the scene with a sharpness that made her breath catch. He wore a simple uniform, a jacket patched with insignia, and a weapon strapped to his hip, but it wasn't drawn. Behind him, a small crew waited, their faces a mix of curiosity and wariness. Daniel approached, stopping a few paces away, and nodded to Torin. "You must be the guildmaster," he said, his voice steady. "I'm here as agreed." Torin bowed slightly. "Captain Voss, this is my daughter, Lyrian." He gestured to her, and she forced herself to meet Daniel's gaze. She expected arrogance, maybe a smirk, but instead, his expression softened. "Lyrian," he said, testing her name like it was something fragile. "I'm Daniel. I know this isn't what you wanted. It's not what I planned either. But I'm not here to own you. I'm here to keep you safe." Safe. The word felt foreign coming from a human. Lyrian's tears, which had threatened to spill again, faltered. She searched his face for a lie, but his eyes held only sincerity, and something else. Curiosity, maybe. Like he was trying to figure her out, just as she was with him. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this?" Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, a small, human gesture that made him seem less like a warrior. "Cracks is a problem for everyone, my people, yours, half the galaxy. Your father's guild has resources I need to stop him. This deal helps us both. And," he paused, glancing at her. "I don't like seeing anyone forced into a cage. Not even an alien girl I just met." Her chest tightened, but not with fear this time. It was strange, his words, his presence, the way he stood there, not towering over her but beside her. Torin stepped forward, placing a data pad in Daniel's hand. "The contract is signed. She's yours now, Captain. Protect her." "I will," Daniel said, his tone firm. He turned to Lyrian, offering his hand, not grabbing, just waiting. "Come with me. Let's get you out of this mess." She hesitated, her mind racing. This wasn't freedom, not fully, but it wasn't the nightmare she'd feared either. Slowly, she placed her hand in his, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. It was rough, calloused, but gentle. Her tears stopped falling, replaced by a flicker of something new, hope, perhaps. As they boarded the stellar dawn, the engines hummed to life, lifting them into the starry void. Lyrian glanced back at her father, then at Daniel, who stood watching her with that same quiet curiosity. "What happens now?" she asked. Daniel smiled, just a little. "Now, we figure it out together. And maybe, just maybe, we turn this debt into something worth fighting for." The ship surged forward, and with it, Lyrian's story began to shift into something she couldn't yet imagine, an adventure beyond the stars, with a human who might just prove the galaxy wrong. The stellar dawn cut through the void of space, its engines humming a steady rhythm that vibrated through the metal floors. Lyrian stood at a wide viewport in the ship's common area, her amber eyes tracing the streaks of stars outside. The vastness felt both exhilarating and overwhelming, her first time leaving Tvaris, her homeworld, behind. She'd spent her life in the bustling markets, surrounded by familiar faces and the gentle sway of her people's pacifist ways. Now, she was aboard a human vessel, married to a stranger, and heading toward an uncertain future. Her blue fingers brushed the cold glass, and she wondered if she'd ever feel at home again. A clatter of boots behind her broke her thoughts. She turned to see Daniel Voss entering the room, his jacket slung over one shoulder, revealing a worn shirt beneath. His crew trailed him, 5 humans, each different in their own way. There was Mara, a wiry woman with a shaved head and a quick grin, carrying a toolbox. Then Jackson, a broad man with a booming laugh, hauling a crate of supplies. The others, Kira, Eli, and Tasha, moved with purpose, their voices overlapping in a mix of jokes and plans. Lyrian tensed, expecting the aggression she'd heard about humans, but instead, they greeted her with nods and curious glances. "Settling in?" Daniel asked, stopping beside her. His voice was calm, but his green eyes studied her, like he was trying to read her thoughts. She nodded, unsure how to answer. "It's different," she said finally. "Loud. Busy. Your people don't stop moving." Daniel chuckled, a sound that eased the knot in her chest. "Yeah, that's us. Always tinkering, always pushing. Keeps us alive out here." He gestured to the crew. "They're good folks. Been with me through worse than this. They're curious about you, though. Not every day we get a Tvar on board." Lyrian glanced at them again. Mara waved, her grin widening. "Heard you're some kind of trade genius," she called. "Maybe you can teach us how to haggle better than Jackson. He once traded a laser rifle for a box of stale crackers." Jackson groaned, and the others laughed. Lyrian blinked, surprised by their warmth. I could try," she said, her voice softening. Over the next few days, Lyrian found herself drawn into the rhythm of the stellar dawn. The ship wasn't sleek or elegant like Tvar vessels, it was a patchwork of repairs and upgrades, a testament to human ingenuity. Daniel showed her the engine room, where Mara explained how they jury-rigged a failing thruster with spare parts from a wrecked freighter. In the galley, Tasha cooked a meal of spiced rations, laughing as Eli burned his tongue on the first bite. They weren't warriors in the way she'd imagined, just people, scrappy and determined, making the best of what they had. One evening, Daniel found her in the common area, sketching on a data pad. She'd been drawing the constellations she remembered from home, a way to ground herself. He sat across from her, resting his elbows on the table. "You're good at that," he said, nodding at the screen. "What's it mean to you?" She hesitated, then traced a cluster of stars with her finger. "These are the guides. My people believe they light the path for lost souls. I thought, maybe they'd help me find my way here." Her voice was quiet, vulnerable, but Daniel didn't push. He just nodded, like he understood more than he let on. "Lyrian," he said after a moment, "I owe you the truth. This marriage, it's not just about your family's debt. Krax isn't stopping with Tvaris. He's got his eyes on neutral systems, including Earth's outer colonies. He's building a fleet, and your guild's trade routes are key to cutting him off. I need your help to stop him." Her breath caught. This was bigger than she'd realized, bigger than her, bigger than a forced vow. "Why me?" she asked. "I'm no soldier. I don't fight." "You don't have to," Daniel said. "Your people are masters of trade, of connections. You know how goods move, how information spreads. That's a weapon Krax doesn't have. With your knowledge and our grit, we can outsmart him." He leaned forward, his eyes earnest. "I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. Just be you." The idea stirred something in her, fear, yes, but also a flicker of purpose. She'd spent her life learning the art of trade, reading people's needs through her Tvar empathy. Could that really matter in a war? She looked at Daniel, at the quiet strength in his face, and nodded. "Tell me what to do." The next day, they gathered in the ship's briefing room, a cramped space with a hollow table flickering in the center. Daniel projected a map of the neutral systems, red lines marking Krax's known routes. "He's hitting supply lines here and here," he said, pointing. "If we block him at the Nexus Pass, we choke his resources. But his ships outnumber us 10-1. Lyrian studied the map, her mind racing. "The pass isn't just a route," she said slowly. "It's a trade hub. My guild used to run decoy shipments through there, empty hulls to trick pirates. If we fake a convoy, make it look valuable, he might split his fleet to chase it." Daniel's eyes lit up. "A decoy? That's brilliant. We rig some drones, load him with junk, and broadcast a signal to lure him in. Meanwhile, we hit his main base with everything we've got." The crew murmured approval, and Mara clapped Lyrian on the shoulder. "Told you she's a genius," she said. Planning stretched into the night. Lyrian worked beside Daniel, their ideas weaving together, her understanding of trade lanes blending with his knack for tactics. She showed him how Tvar tech could amplify the drone's signals, making the bait irresistible. He countered with a plan to use the ship's stealth mode, a human tweak that masked their approach. By the time they finished, the table was a mess of notes and empty cups, and Lyrian felt something new, trust. Not just in Daniel, but in herself. As the crew dispersed, Daniel lingered, watching her. "You're more than I expected," he said, his voice low. "I thought I was saving you. Turns out, you might be saving us." Her cheeks warmed, a faint glow pulsing under her skin, a Tvar sign of emotion she couldn't hide. "I thought you'd be like the stories," she admitted. "Harsh. Cold. But you're different. You listen." He smiled, a real one that reached his eyes. "Good. Because we're in this together now. Not just because of some contract, because I want us to be." He offered his hand again, like he had on Tvaris, and she took it without hesitation this time. His grip was steady, grounding her in a way she hadn't expected. The mission launched at dawn. The stellar dawn slipped into the shadows of an asteroid field near the Nexus Pass, while the decoy drone sped ahead, broadcasting fake cargo manifests. Lyrian stood on the bridge, her heart pounding as she watched the holodisplay. Krax's fleet appeared, a swarm of jagged ships splitting as predicted, half chasing the bait, half holding position. Daniel gave the order, and their ship surged forward, cloaked and silent, toward the warlord's base. Beside her, Daniel's voice was calm but firm. "Ready?" She nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about her family anymore, it was about proving something, to herself and the galaxy. "Ready," she said, and the stars ahead blazed with possibility. The battle was coming, and with it, a chance to turn a forced bond into something unbreakable. Lyrian glanced at Daniel, his focus unwavering, and realized she wasn't just a passenger on this ship, she was part of it, part of them. Whatever happened next, they'd face it side by side, human and Tvar, rewriting their story one daring move at a time. The stellar dawn glided through the asteroid field, its stealth cloak shimmering faintly against the dark expanse of space. Lyrian stood on the bridge, her amber eyes locked on the holodisplay as the decoy drones executed their dance. The fake convoy streaked across the Nexus Pass, broadcasting signals of rare minerals and tech, bait too tempting for Warlord Krax to ignore. The plan was working. His fleet fractured, half his jagged ships peeling off to chase the drones, their engines flaring like angry wasps. The other half lingered near his base, a hulking fortress orbiting a barren moon, its cannons bristling with menace. Daniel stood beside her, his hands steady on the helm controls. The crew was silent, tension thick in the air. Mara manned the weapons station, her fingers poised over the triggers. Jackson monitored the engines, sweat beading on his brow. Kira and Eli tracked the enemy's movements, while Tasha relayed updates from the drones. Lyrian felt the weight of their trust pressing on her, this was her idea, her knowledge of trade routes fueling the gambit. If it failed, they'd all pay the price. "Decoys are holding," Tasha reported, her voice tight. "Krax's scouts are closing in, 5 minutes till they realize it's a trap." Daniel nodded, his jaw set. "That's our window. Full speed to the base. Hit them hard before they regroup." The ship lurched forward, engines roaring as the cloak strained to keep them hidden. Lyrian gripped the edge of the console, her heart racing. She wasn't a warrior, but she was here, part of this fight. The base loomed closer, a monstrous silhouette against the moon's gray surface. Its defenses spun to life, sensors sweeping, turrets swiveling. "They're scanning," Eli warned. "Cloaks holding, but not for long." Daniel glanced at Lyrian, a flicker of reassurance in his green eyes. "Your turn," he said. "Jam their comms like you showed us." She swallowed, then activated the Tvar device she'd rigged to the ship's systems, a small, elegant tool her people used to disrupt pirate signals during trades. Her fingers danced over the controls, sending a wave of static through Krax's network. The holodisplay flickered as enemy comms scrambled, their coordination faltering. "It's working," Kira said, a grin breaking through her focus. "They're blind." "Now!" Daniel barked. The stellar dawn dropped its cloak, surging into view. Mara unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts, lighting up the void as they slammed into the base's shields. The fortress returned fire, crimson beams slicing through space, shaking the ship. Lyrian stumbled, but Daniel steadied her with a hand on her arm. "Hold on," he said. "We've got this." The battle raged, a chaos of light and sound. Krax's ships from the past doubled back, realizing the ruse, but the stellar dawn pressed its advantage. Jackson pushed the engines past their limits, weaving through debris as Mara targeted the base's power core. Lyrian watched, awe and fear mixing in her chest. Humans didn't fight like Tvar, they didn't retreat or negotiate. They adapted, they pushed, they won. Then came the twist. A transmission cut through the static, a reptilian voice, sharp and desperate. "This is Subcommander Vrek. I'm breaking ranks. Krax's tyranny ends today. I'll disable the core from inside, give me cover." The crew exchanged stunned looks. "A defector?" Mara said. "Can we trust him?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "We use it. Cover his position, full barrage on their turrets." Lyrian felt a surge of her Tvar empathy, a faint echo of Vrek's emotions, anger, fear, resolve. "He's telling the truth," she said. "I can feel it." Daniel met her gaze, then nodded. "That's good enough for me." The stellar dawn shifted, drawing fire as Vrek's signal blinked inside the base. Explosions rocked the structure, sparks flaring from its core. Krax's ships faltered, their formation breaking as the fortress shuddered. "He did it!" Eli shouted. "Cores down, shields failing." Mara whooped, landing a final salvo that tore through the base's hull. Flames erupted, silent in the vacuum, as the fortress began to crumble. But victory wasn't free. A stray shot from a retreating ship clipped the stellar dawn, a deafening blast rocking the bridge. Alarms blared, and Daniel was thrown against the helm, blood streaking his temple. "Daniel!" Lyrian cried, rushing to him as he slumped, dazed. The crew scrambled, Jackson sealing a hull breach, Kira rerouting power. Lyrian knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed them to his chest. His breathing was shallow, his eyes unfocused. "No, no, you don't get to leave me now," she whispered, tears welling up. Then she felt it, a pulse beneath her fingers, faint but alive. Her Tvar empathy flared, stronger than ever. She'd always sensed emotions, but this was deeper, a connection forged by their bond. Closing her eyes, she reached for it, pouring her energy into him, willing him to hold on. Her skin glowed faintly, a soft blue light spreading from her hands to his wounds. It was instinct, not training, but it felt right. Daniel gasped, his eyes snapping open. "Lyrian, what?" His voice was weak, but he was awake. Relief flooded her, wiping away the tears before they could fall. "You're okay," she said, her voice breaking. I kept you here." He gripped her hand, his strength returning. "You're full of surprises," he rasped, a faint smile tugging at his lips. The crew rallied, stabilizing the ship as Krax's remaining forces scattered. Vrek's voice crackled over the comms. "Base is toast. Krax is retreating, cowards running for the border. You've got him on the ropes." Daniel pulled himself up, leaning on Lyrian. "Good. We're not done yet. Pursuit course, let's finish this." Hours later, the stellar dawn limped after Krax's flagship, a monstrous vessel fleeing toward deep space. The battle had cost them, hull damage, depleted ammo, and Daniel's injuries, but they'd won the day. Lyrian stayed by his side, her hand in his, marveling at what they'd done. She'd been terrified, a pawn in a debt she didn't choose, but now she'd helped turn the tide. Her ideas, her courage, her bond with Daniel, it mattered. As the crew repaired the ship, Vrek docked alongside, his Reptarian shuttle dwarfed by their patchwork vessel. He boarded, his scales dull with exhaustion, but his eyes held a spark of defiance. "Cracks underestimated you humans," he said, bowing slightly to Daniel. "And you, Tvar. Your kind don't fight, yet you did." "She's more than Tvar," Daniel said, his arm around her shoulders. "She's one of us." Lyrian's chest swelled, pride mixing with something deeper. Vrek nodded. "I've got intel, Krax's next move. He's rallying at the fringe. With me, you can end him for good." Daniel looked to Lyrian, a question in his gaze. She didn't hesitate. "We started this together. We finish it together." Her voice was steady, her fear replaced by resolve. The crew cheered, and even Vrek cracked a rare Reptarian grin. "Then let's hunt," he said. The stellar dawn set course for the fringe, battered but unbowed. Lyrian stood with Daniel, watching the stars ahead. She'd saved him, just as he'd saved her, not from cracks, but from a life of doubt. Her tears were gone, replaced by a fire she hadn't known she possessed. Krax's defeat was close, and with it, a future she could shape. Human and Tvar, side by side, they'd fight for freedom, not just hers, but everyone's. The stellar dawn drifted through the fringe, a jagged expanse of space littered with asteroid belts and the husks of forgotten ships. The stars here burned dimmer, swallowed by the shadows of a region lawless even by galactic standards. Lyrian stood beside Daniel on the bridge, her amber eyes fixed on the holodisplay tracking Krax's flagship. The warlord's vessel loomed ahead, a fortress of black steel bristling with cannons, its engines flaring as it prepared to flee deeper into the void. This was their last chance, his defeat would free her family, the neutral systems, and maybe even herself. Daniel leaned against the helm, his injuries bandaged but his determination unshaken. The crew buzzed around them, battle-worn yet resolute. Mara recalibrated the weapons, Jackson patched the engines, and Kira coordinated with Vrek's shuttle, now an ally in their pursuit. Lyrian felt the hum of the ship beneath her feet, a rhythm she'd grown to trust. She wasn't the scared girl from Tvaris anymore, somewhere between the Nexus Pass and now, she'd found her place among these humans. Closing in, Eli reported, his fingers flying over the sensors. Krax's shields are up, but his fleet scattered. He's alone. Daniel nodded, his voice steady despite the strain. Good. Vrek, you ready? The Reptarian's gruff reply crackled through the comms. Born ready, human. I'll flank him, draw his fire. You hit the engines. The plan was simple but brutal, pin Krax between the stellar dawn and Vrek's shuttle, disable his ship, and force a surrender. Lyrian's role was subtler, she'd use her Tvar device to jam his escape signals, trapping him in the fringe. She adjusted the controls, her hands steady now, and sent a pulse of interference. The holodisplay flickered as Krax's comms went dark. He's cut off, she said, meeting Daniel's gaze. He flashed a grin. Nice work. Let's end this. The stellar dawn surged forward, Vrek's shuttle darting alongside like a shadow. Krax's flagship opened fire, crimson beams lancing through space. The ship rocked as a hit grazed their hull, but Jackson's quick repairs held. Mara returned fire, her plasma bolts hammering the warlord's shields. Vrek weaved through the barrage, his smaller craft landing precise strikes on the flagship's flank. Lyrian watched, her heart pounding, not with fear, but with a fierce hope she hadn't known she could feel. Then Krax's voice roared over an unjammed channel, cold and guttural. You think you've won, human? Tvar. I'll bury you both. A massive cannon swiveled, charging with a glow that promised destruction. Daniel cursed, yanking the helm to evade, but the ship was too slow. "Brace," he shouted. Lyrian grabbed the console as the beam fired, not at them, but at Vrek. The Reptarian's shuttle spun, taking the hit full on. Sparks erupted, and Vrek's signal blinked out. "No!" Lyrian cried, her empathy flaring with his fading resolve. Daniel's face hardened. "He bought us time. Mara, now!" The stellar dawn unleashed everything, missiles, plasma, a desperate volley that slammed into Krax's engines. The flagship shuddered, flames bursting from its rear as it lost thrust. Krax's ship drifted, crippled but defiant. A final transmission hissed through. "Surrender, or I detonate the core. We all die." Daniel didn't flinch. "He's bluffing. He wants to live more than he wants us dead." Lyrian felt it too. Krax's rage was real, but beneath it, fear pulsed. "He's weak," she said. "He's lost control." Daniel opened a channel. "Krax, it's over. Stand down, or we finish you." Silence stretched, then a snarl. "Curse you, human." The flagship powered down, its weapons going dark. The crew erupted in cheers, but Lyrian's relief was tempered. Vrek was gone, a price she hadn't wanted to pay. Hours later, Krax was in custody, his ship towed by Allied vessels summoned by the stellar dawn. The fringe was quiet again, its shadows hiding the scars of battle. Daniel sat with Lyrian in the galley, his arm in a sling, her hands cradling a cup of Tvar tea she'd brewed from dwindling supplies. "We did it," he said, his voice soft. "Your family's free. The colonies are safe." She nodded, but her thoughts lingered on the cost. Vrek didn't deserve that. He turned against his own for us. Daniel reached for her hand, his touch warm. He chose to fight. That's what matters. We'll honor him, humans don't forget. Their moment was interrupted by a calm chime. A Tvar counselor's face appeared, her silver hair and stern gaze marking her as high-ranking. "Lyrian, daughter of Tauren," she intoned. "Your marriage to this human has disrupted our traditions. The debt is cleared, but the union is unsanctioned. Return home. Annul it." Lyrian's grip tightened on Daniel's hand. She'd expected this, her people clung to bloodlines in arranged matches, fearing chaos. But she wasn't that girl anymore. "No," she said, her voice clear. "I chose this. Daniel isn't just my husband, he's my partner. Our child proves it." She placed a hand on her abdomen, where a faint warmth had begun days ago, a secret she'd only shared with him. The counselor's eyes widened. "A child? So soon?" Daniel stepped in, his tone firm. "Yeah, a child. Human and Tvar. You can't undo that. We're building something here, peace, trade, a future. You can join us or stay in the past." The counselor faltered, then cut the feed. Lyrian exhaled, leaning into Daniel. "They'll fight it," she said. "They hate change." He kissed her forehead. "Let them try. Humans are stubborn. And I've got you." Weeks later, the stellar dawn docked at a neutral station, its crew hailed as heroes. Krax faced trial, his empire shattered. Lyrian and Daniel stood on a balcony overlooking the bustling port, her gown flowing around a slight curve in her belly. Tvar pregnancies were swift, 3 months, not 9, and their child grew fast, a blend of their strengths. She felt it kick, a tiny pulse of life, and smiled. "I'm leaving the front lines," Daniel said, breaking the silence. "Command offered me a training post, teaching new recruits. No more deployments. I want to be here, with you, with them." He rested a hand beside hers, wonder in his eyes. Lyrian turned to him, surprised. "You'd give that up? The fighting? For this?" He nodded at her, at their future. Yeah. I've spent years breaking things. Time to build instead, a home, a family, maybe a trade network with your people. Humans and Tvar, side by side. Her heart swelled. She'd been forced into this marriage, tears staining her face, but now. She'd chosen it, fought for it, shaped it. My father was wrong, she said. He thought humans took without care. But you give, too. You gave me freedom. Not entirely wrong, Daniel teased, pulling her close. I took you, didn't I? Just didn't expect you'd steal my heart back. Their lips met, soft and sure, the station's lights glittering below like a new constellation. Months later, under a sky streaked with twin suns, Lyrian cradled their daughter on Tvaris. The child's skin shimmered faintly blue, her eyes a vivid green, Daniel's eyes. They named her Vara, after Vrek, a tribute to the sacrifice that brought them here. Torin wept when he held her, his doubts fading. The council grumbled but relented, trade talks beginning between Tvaris and Earth's colonies. Daniel stood beside Lyrian, his uniform traded for civilian clothes, a teacher now, not a soldier. Think she'll be as stubborn as me? He asked, grinning. Lyrian laughed, the sound free and bright. Or as clever as me. Poor Galaxy won't know what hit it. The suns dipped low, painting the horizon gold. Their story wasn't over, challenges would come, cultures would clash, but they'd face it together. A debt had bound them, but courage had set them free. And as Vara cooed, the stars above whispered of endless horizons, waiting for a family forged across worlds.